Hey everybody, today I'm talking about Modern Art, which is a 3 to 5 player board game designed by Reiner Knizia. This one came out in 1992, so nearly 30 years old at this point, so I suppose you could consider it a modern classic. And there have been many versions of this game, and in particular I'll be looking at the one of the newest printings by Come. However, as I said, there are many different iterations, but I believe that the rules have been consistent throughout. So this one is an auction game, which is a kind of a genre that Reiner Knizia is very synonymous with. He's made lots of great auction games that I personally really enjoy, such as Ra, such as High Society. This one has some similarities to those games, and is very much a, there's many different facets of the auctioning in this game, lots of different ways you can accumulate things. So the objective of this game is to get as much money as you can by collecting or buying cards in auctions and then selling them off for profit. So at the start of the game, every player is going to be given a hand of these cards, and these cards are going to have different information on them, but most of it is, just artwork and completely superficial, but the important information is at the top here. So as you can see, there's different artists attributed to these different pieces of art. And again, that corresponds to the main board here. And the idea is that throughout the game, the value of the artwork by each particular artist is going to fluctuate. Sometimes it's going to be worth a lot, sometimes it's going to be worth nothing, and it's all about collecting the right artwork and selling it at the right time. Additionally, on top of these cards, you've got a symbol here, which is going to determine the type of auction that these pieces of art are going to be sold using, and I'll go through those shortly. Everybody's going to have a museum screen here to hide the money, and this is going to be secret throughout the game, and you're going to use that to buy your paintings. And the flow of the game is going to be quite simple. Simply, you're going to choose one of the cards from your hand, and you're going to play it in front of you, or at least in front of everybody, and then an auction is going to commence. So the person who plays the card is essentially going to be the auctioneer. They're going to take control of the little gavel here, at least in this version, and an auction is going to start. So you've got lots of different versions of auctions here, as I mentioned. This one here, with this eye symbol, is basically your traditional open auction where people are going to be throwing in bids left, right and centre without any rhyme or reason or any turn order. Just the highest bidder wins. You've got this one here. This is kind of a hidden auction where people are going to take an amount of money from from behind their screen, put it in their hand secretly, and everybody is going to reveal at the same time, and whoever bids the highest is going to be the winner of the piece of art. You've got this fixed price auction where the auctioneer is going to name a price that he is essentially willing to pay, and then in player order, if anybody chooses to match that price, then they will get the piece of art. But if nobody does, then the auctioneer will pay the cost that he's chosen and take the piece of art into their hand. And the final one here is a one-off auction where, starting from the player to the left of the auctioneer, somebody can place a single bid, and then going around in order, you're either going to get a choice to raise that bid or not. Now, there are some special cards as well, such as these ×2 auctions. Now, these ones mean that whenever you play one of these cards, you are also going to have to choose another card to play. So, for example, I might say, let's choose this one as well. And this means that a couple of pieces of art are going to be auctioned at the same time using the method of the second card. So in this example, it's going to be a blind bid. And once the bid's determined, who's bid the most, you're going to put the card in front of you, and just to show other players what you've accumulated throughout the game, or at least throughout the round. And then as soon as the fifth card of a certain type of artist is played, then scoring is going to commence. Now, something that's really worth mentioning is that when you are the auctioneer and you win your own auction, then the money is going to go to the bank. But if you are the auctioneer and somebody else wins on your turn, they are going to pay the money to you. So that's another decision to make there, and something you have to bear in mind when you're buying these lots, because not only are you going to get potentially points at the end of the round, you're also instantly giving your opponents money to not only use going forward, but which is essentially going to help them win the game. So let's talk about how scoring works in modern art. So as soon as the 5th card of a particular artist is revealed, and that means just shown and not actually auctioned, then the end of the round is going to be triggered and points or money are going to be distributed. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to decipher which artist appears most amongst all the players. So in this example, we have 4 Manuel Carvalho cards, we have 4 blue cards, and we have 4 red cards. But the end of the round would have been triggered, let's say, for example, when somebody played that 5th Manuel Carvalho card. So what you're going to do then is you're going to, as I said, show who's the most numerous amongst all the players, and the person who does appear the most is going to get 30 points, the second most is going to get 20 points, and the third point is going to get 10 points. The other 2 artists, which haven't appeared the most amongst all the other players, are going to be worth nothing. In case of a tie, then the person or the artist furthest to the left is going to break that tie and take the advantage. So this would be the particular layout in this example. And now all the players are going to sell their art that they've accumulated at the value each for depending on the price that they've got here. So every piece of Manuel Carvalho art will be worth 30 coins or 30 money. So this player would cash these cards in for 90. They would take their red card here and sell it for 10 for 100 coins in total. And as you can see, they've bought 2 green cards, but at the moment that artist is worth nothing. So they are not going to get any points for their green cards. Now, the following rounds are going to work in exactly the same way. However, values are going to be potentially boosted by in different rounds. So going forward, Sigrid Thaler could have been worth 50 coins this round. But something that's important is that even though in this example Manuel Carvalho was really successful in the first round, he wasn't worth anything in the second round. Now this doesn't mean that he's still worth 30, it actually means it's worth nothing. So the kind of the lucrativeness and the value of these different pieces of art does fluctuate quite drastically, and even though one turn it can be worth a lot of money, the next round it can be worth absolutely nothing. So that's how the scoring works, and I find that's quite interesting. So let's talk about how I feel about modern art. So talking about auction games and Reiner Knizia might be a bit of a moot point at this stage in the kind of board game hobby. This guy is synonymous with these games. It's what he does. He's had so many successful auction games that I've loved, and this is another example of that. But I suppose the best question is, how does this game compare with the other ones? So first off, what I really like about this game is how simple the rule set is. It is extremely simple, and a lot of the fun comes from the auctions themselves and the variety of the auctions, because you do have that simple open auctions. You have the blind bidding, you have the one-off bidding, you have the kind of set the price bidding, and all this adds a lot of variety and kind of dynamism to the game, which keeps things feeling fresh. It keeps you on your toes. And it just keeps things ticking along nicely, always kind of thinking about what you're going to do next. But I also love the mechanism in terms of the way the points are distributed and the way that the money or the economy is spread around the board as well. Because as I said, when you bid on auctions that you've personally set or are hosting, then the money is going to go to the bank and it's going to be taken out of the economy. But when you buy lots of other players, that money is going to go to that player, which is a big decision to weigh up and something that can't be just done without reason or without thought going behind it. So I love that economic feel, that vibe, just tallying up what other people have spent. Is this going to be worth it for me? Am I going to be collecting this set and selling it for the maximum money here? I've got to manage my hand of cards and make sure that I've got enough to get these artists past the finish line to get them into that top 3 rankings of these artists. I also love the way the pricing changes throughout. I said, in the early rounds, one might be worth a load of money like this one here, but as soon as it gets to that third round, you might be thinking, you know what, I'm going to go all in on blue and get 3 cards of them if I can, and then the other players pip them to the post by getting 4 cards of the others out, and you could have wasted a lot of money investing in blue when in this round it'll be worth absolutely nothing. So I also like the way that things don't actually lean from one round to another. So in this game, as soon as you've tallied up your art that you've accumulated for the round, the money or the art is going to be discarded, and you're going to essentially start again from scratch. The only thing that's going to carry from round to round is the money that you've accumulated and the existing values of those artists. But again, that doesn't mean that much, or it can potentially be completely undermined by somebody or by that artist not being successful in following rounds. So all these little elements are extremely interesting, and I think they all come together wonderfully in a streamlined experience, which, to be honest, I wouldn't expect anything less from Reiner Knizia. That is what this guy does. He's very good at cutting the fat off the games. He never includes anything that doesn't need to be there, and I think that's his design philosophy, and modern art is just a strong example of that. And particularly considering this game is, as I said, 30 years old at this point. Just a triumph, really. Just a fantastic designer. In terms of the balance as well, I mean, yes, you are somewhat subject to the cards in your hand, and of course you can go rounds without getting much at all because people are constantly snapping things before you can buy them. But by doing that, they're going to be spending money, and if they're buying the cards that you really want to buy, the ones that you've played, then you're going to be getting money anyway, which ultimately is going to be your points. So there is a very well and interesting balance here. And also, you've got to weigh that decision of, if I've got 4 red cards here, if I play the other 2 and catch the other people off guard, I can really almost fast track this round and benefit off that. So more decisions there, which I think is fantastic. Uptime as well is great. Always engaged, whether it's your turn, somebody else's turn, you're always going to be in the picture, throwing bids out and deciding which artists are going to be worth the most money. Replayability, I think because this game is so streamlined and elegant, it's pretty flexible in its player count as well in terms of working with 3, 4 or 5 players. I think it is going to peak better at those higher player counts, 4 or 5, just being a bit more competition amongst the players, more people getting shafted with buying art that's not worth anything. But the 3-player game does offer a different experience, and it does work surprisingly well because it's a bit more tactical, a bit more involved, and you are considering what the other players are buying and could probably keep a better tally on how much money they're spending. So probably a more involved game when it comes to that lower player count, but maybe a little bit of the fun factor is increased with those higher player counts. Aesthetically, I like the way this game looks. It's called modern art, as you'd expect some decent art here. And all the different artists are real-life artists. And, I don't know much about these, but you've got different styles here. I suppose the art is completely subjective, but it works well for the game. You've got some really nice pieces here. It's very striking. These nice, big, tarot-sized cards add a lot to the game as well. Components are really good quality. The board is nice and clear and easy to identify what everything's worth. I suppose what the main gimmick is the wooden gavel, which is a really good quality thing, and it is a bit of a gimmick, but this is an auction game and this adds so much to the theme, it adds so much to the player interaction and the immersion, and that little things like that do go a long way with a game like this, and I don't think that's something to be underestimated. So in terms of the components and quality and theme and stuff, I think everything comes together wonderfully for an auction game. Even the screens are quite good and nice and clean and vibrant as well. So no complaints whatsoever from me when it comes to production. And the setup and teardown time as well is no issue whatsoever. Essentially, you are just shuffling a big deck of cards and dealing them out, dealing some money out, and pretty much get going from there. So no issue whatsoever. The progression in the game, I think, is fantastic. I love the market is just such a big part of this game, and it adds a lot to the forward momentum. The constant changing values is just a huge pivotal part, and I love that. And it makes the game feel so much different in the earlier rounds where you're purely speculating, and in the end rounds where you know who the big artists you want to get into those top 3, and get loads of paintings of theirs down to get those big bucks. So yeah, overall, this is a fantastic game. When a game's been around for 30 years and still remained in print, I think, what really else can you say? This is a game that's always going to get out for me, or at least going to hit the table regularly, especially when I've got 4 or 5 people around on a games night. Something that's going to be easy to teach, but still has some gamey mechanisms, some really thoughtful decisions to be made. The set collection is interesting, the auction is interesting, and you can that idea of catching people off guard and having to discard your artwork that you've paid so much for and potentially for that to be worth nothing is going to create some real fun moments, and I think it's going to be memorable. It's going to create some memorable moments, and you're going to take a lot away from modern art if you do like your auction games. Now, I know a lot of people do not like auction games, and in that case, I of course wouldn't recommend modern art because that's essentially all this game is. But for me personally, I'm a big fan of auction games. I haven't really played many I don't like, and this one is certainly a top tier one and has stood the test of time for good reason. So many good things going on, really interesting, fun, breezy, but still thought-provoking. That is modern art, a modern classic. So this one gets my shield of quality, no hesitation to give it that whatsoever. Certainly going to be a collection mainstay for some time to come. That is modern art. Certainly check this one out. If you have enjoyed the review, please hit like and subscribe to my channel and check out my other videos too. For everyone else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye.